Okay, you've seen the title of this video, but hear me out. C6 Bennett is good. My name's Kazahana, and in this video I'm going to be looking at Bennett and investigating whether C6ing your Bennett will ruin your account or actually be quite beneficial in some cases, because there are actually a ton of misconceptions when it comes to C6 Bennett. For a very long time now, it's been widely known in the Genshin community to never C6 your Bennett, and that doing so would be an account ruiner. You may be wondering why exactly that is. Well, Bennett C6 named 5 ventures with me, gives sword, claymore, and polearm wielding characters inside Bennett's fantastic voyage his elemental burst, a 15% pyro damage boost, and infuses their weapon with pyro, which doesn't seem like such a bad constellation, right? Well, wrong. The Genshin community blew up with videos left and right coming out from different content creators not to C6 your Bennett, as it could potentially destroy your account, and you'll never be able to achieve the damage you want to again, with the main reason for this being the part where he infuses pyro, which can often make it impossible for melee characters to make use of their elemental reactions. But it has been a long time since this was made a fact. But how does it work now we're in the funny nation of Fontaine? All the time in between these two events we've had a ton of new characters released, which have really changed up what we know about C6 Bennett, and even making his extra constellation actually useful in some circumstances. And I stress that I mean some, as I know there's a lot of people that need him at C5 for certain team comps, which is very valid, and I'll go into that in more detail, but this is your Bennett. So I'm not telling you should definitely C6 him, I'm just merely presenting the options you have so you can make your own mind up. Let's start with the positives and negatives about team comps. With Bennett's ability to infuse pyro on other characters' weapons, it does present some new kind of team comps where characters can self-react. For example, Kaya and Chongyun can self-melt, and Xingqiu and Naruto can self-vaporize, which can save you a lot of space in your teams when it comes to reactions. And it also increases the character's overall DPS a lot, especially whenever you pair it with Bennett's attack boost. But Bennett also presents some problems for physical units and physical-based teams, as C6ing your Bennett will cause huge problems for physical teams that include characters like Eula, Xinyan, and most recently Fremenei, who all deal a massive amount of physical damage that can be enhanced by C5 Bennett. But his C6 infuses their normal attack with pyro, meaning that they can't deal physical damage unless they use their skill or burst, making his 6 constellation a terrible option for him. Meaning that if you want to run a lot of physical builds and use your Bennett to enhance your damage, then it wouldn't be best to use C6 on him. But C6 Bennett also presents a lot of Bennett fits. I'm terrible at jokes.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
For real though, if you're a pyro connoisseur just like me, then C6 Bennett could be the way to go, with him furthering the power of mono pyro teams, and also gives a big pyro damage boost to many pyro DPS characters, like lyney, Ymir, Klee, Diluc, and so many more. But you might be asking, Kaza, why did you mention lyney, Ymir, and Klee? The pyro damage bonus only applies to melee characters. Well, wriothesely lied to you, as it actually works on bow and castless characters too, as this is after plenty of research from the community, so I hope they actually fix the wording soon, because this is basically false advertisement. And obviously as this isn't widely known, it does throw a lot of people off when deciding whether to C6 their Bennett. And as I mentioned before, if you use a lot of pyro characters, then C6 will actually provide you with a ton of damage, which could massively improve your team, all at the expense of not being able to use them with physical builds, which isn't really a bad trade, especially if you don't use them. But there are also some other characters that you can interfere with, being Aika and Kuching, who also infuse their attacks with elements, but a lot more inconsistently than Bennett. And like the physical characters can sometimes limit your ability to support them with them, but it doesn't mean you can't support them at all, as I mentioned that they were inconsistent, making his effects less efficient but not impossible. Both of them also do have many other support characters which actually work better than Bennett, making it not super essential to have him in your team anyways. But with some very minor drawbacks, also provide some very useful effects, with Bennett C6 making him much more valuable as he's able to generate way more energy for himself, and also other characters, which can help characters out that struggle with energy issues, like Xiangling. When using C6 Bennett alongside characters like Xiangling, it can actually make her insane, as she has improved energy generation, a 15% pyro damage boost alongside the attack and healing buffs which Bennett can provide her with, which doesn't sound too bad, especially when if you consider free-to-play accounts want to use characters like Xiangling optimally in the Spiral Abyss. And hey, I see you Wales, and I'm not forgetting about you, as you pretty much make this game run yourself. C6 Bennett can also benefit Wales, especially if you pull characters recently like lyney, who can work amazingly with C6 Bennett. And with the Fire Nation Natlan approaching us very fast, C6 Bennett could be an absolute godsend for all the people looking to pull all of the new pyro characters, as there's bound to be a ton in this new area, meaning that having his 6 constellation is only going to get better and better. I know many of you love to play Genshin with your friends, or you just suck at the game and need people to carry you, so we also need to think about co-op mode, which might not make much of a difference, especially if you don't use co-op mode. But C6 can make Bennett much less appreciated in co-op domains, as you don't really know what teams are going to be running when you get there, as not everyone's going to be running some ultra gigachad mono pyro team, and you could be pretty screwed bringing your C6 Bennett to a full physical party, which would just get a little bit awkward, meaning that C6 Bennett can be less flexible for different team comps, but he can also work pretty well in cryo domains, so that is a small bonus, but honestly not enough to justify anything if you want to use him in co-op. And one of the most important points out of all is that little annoying dot. If you have really bad OCD when it comes to the Genshin menu like me, then I'm sure you're itching to get rid of that annoying little red dot in the corner of your screen. Even if it doesn't affect your teams positively, why not do it, just to get rid of that little dot? Seriously though, if you're considering whether you want to use Bennett C6, then take in all of the facts I provided you with, as I think the debate of C6 Bennett is coming to a close, as both sides of the argument are getting fairer and fairer, with there being benefits and drawbacks to using this constellation. And this was a very different story over a year ago, when we didn't have all of these characters to consider, meaning that back then I think that not C6ing your Bennett was a fair choice, as there was way more negatives. But each update is slowly creeping up to us, to the point where both options are viable, and can provide you with new options for your account, as it's actually very worth C6ing your Bennett unless you main characters like Xinyan and Eula, as all of the other negatively affected characters have some pretty good and even better options, other than Bennett, especially now with the release of Dendro, as characters like Kuchin can benefit way more of Dendro-based teams, rather than sticking with a rather ancient Bennett team. And if you do happen to be a lucky person with C6 Mika, then Eula and Xinyan may not be too worse off. And like I mentioned before, the release of Natlan could be really where C6 Bennett is going to shine even brighter, as there will be so many more options for him, and there'll probably be a point in time where C6 is miles better than C5. But like I mentioned before, I'm purely just laying out all the facts, and this is really up to you to decide whether you want to C6 your Bennett, as both sides offer us some really good benefits, and I hope that these facts have helped you decide a bit easier, as there are a lot of misconceptions in the community, especially surrounding this topic. But if you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, then don't forget to like and even subscribe if you want to see more Genshin guides like this, and even comment whether you decided to C6 your Bennett, as I'm super interested to know if it'll help you or not. That's all, see ya!